aware of the difficulties families had to cope with. And so today's ceremony is a very fitting tribute to both Winnie and Gerald and their achievements and good wishes for the ongoing good work of Autism West Midlands. That's from Eileen.
Well, I think that sets the scene very well indeed, really. As Eileen said, autism was something that was not widely understood. In times before Jimmy's birth, severely autistic people would have been put away and removed from public gaze, starved of stimulation and human affection, to lead unhealthy lives which often, sadly, would not have extended into old age. That this has changed is in many ways due to the remarkable generation of parents who were not prepared to write off their children's lives as being beyond hope of fulfilment. They pushed for more understanding, more schooling, more facilities, here in Birmingham certainly, but in other parts of the country and internationally as well. When my parents first discovered what was then the Birmingham Autistic Society, it was a revelation to them. In observing other autistic children, they saw patterns of behaviour which they had previously thought were confined to Jimmy alone. They also learned of steps that were being taken to help both parents and their children. However, as Jimmy was one of the older diagnosed autistic people, developments often came too late to help him. As he approached adulthood and beyond, the problem of how he would lead his life loomed larger and larger. It was clear that any form of self-sufficiency would be beyond his capabilities, and yet there were few specialised services available, such facilities that were brought into existence, generally concentrating on children. Early steps were being taken. Somerset Court near Burnham-on-Sea was one example of a pathfinder in this respect, creating a lifelong home for autistic people where they could not just exist, but thrive in a safe and sympathetic environment. Having seen this and other similar places dotted around the country, my parents and other parents in a similar position saw how badly such a facility was needed in the West Midlands. In the 1970s and early 80s, my father was very busy in his job, so it was my mother who served for many years on the committee of the Birmingham Autistic Society. When Dad took early retirement, however, around 1983, it was with the specific intention of leading a project which would found a home in the West Midlands for autistic adults. First stages were a huge communication campaign, raising awareness among MPs, councillors, social services and health authorities of the pressing and urgent need that was growing all the time. The geographical reach of the society was extended by a merger with the Worcester Society, and it became the West Midland Autistic Society, its boundaries being aligned with the local health authority. He acquired very many valuable allies, none more so than John Williamson, a leading figure in social services, who was 100% committed to trying to meet the need that Dad had so clearly articulated. He could do only so much though. Funding could be found for much of the day centre needs, but the residential costs were harder for him to meet. And this is where Dad, who had always been meticulous in following up ideas, picked up a suggestion that housing associations might be able to help. This was a new idea for projects of this nature, but it was the key that made the Oakfield House project possible. Dad established links with the Family Housing Association, represented by Anthea Mills, who we're fortunate to have with us today. And so Anthea, perhaps you could just share one or two memories of those days.
Just one or two. I'll just turn round so I've got my that's all. Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you for inviting me today, John. It's just lovely to be here, it really is. And just looking at the journey that Gerald and Winnie went on behalf of Jimmy. We came in about 1983 as family housing because we had access to the funding that would be needed to purchase and develop the property. And just to thinking back, it was a time of great goodwill, led by Gerald, I would say, as a figurehead of someone who had got such integrity that you really just wanted to follow him. So Gerald and Winnie really led us, and we were lucky enough to find these houses in Oakfield Road. And all the people involved that we met were so supportive and wanted this to happen. From the person who lived in Oakfield Road, Ken, who owned these houses before, not wanting to make an enormous profit from selling them, which enabled us to be able to afford the properties. And then the chair of the Residents Association here, who steered us through planning to make sure that the neighbourhood felt very welcoming towards Oakfield House. And I think I must mention Vince O'Neill, who lived in this road and worked at family housing, and he sort of gelled this all together to make it happen. So it's with great, very fond memories that I think of Gerald and Winnie and all the people that I work with, and it's just lovely to be here today. And I had forgotten how big the garden was, because Gerald was adamant it must have an acre of land. We were like, how do you get an acre of land? But it happened, and it was goodwill on everyone's part. And I'm so glad that Oakfield House is still prospering, and I wish it every good fortune for the future. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there were many setbacks when all seemed lost, but thanks to Dad's persistence, the goodwill of the authorities, difficulties were overcome. One story I remember Dad telling, if I got this right, is at one of the final meetings to agree the project, 1985 I think, there was a shortfall of 35,000, and there was not a single avenue left that had not been exhausted. But it was the Director of Social Services that resolved the situation. He said he got no idea where the money was coming from, but he was not prepared to see the project collapse. So he would guarantee the money from government funds.
Yeah. They were Wild West days when he just said, oh, go ahead. And we were like, yay!
Yeah, and so it happened. Aside from the finance, there was a huge amount of work converted the property to make it suitable for the intended purposes. Staff were recruited, notably Hugh Morgan, who was a principal, has gone on to be a widely respected figure in his own right in the world of autism. Whose secretary, Marion Wallet, is it? Very well representing you. Lovely. Yeah. Also, Eve Matthews is with us. Yep. And Dina has been here very nearly the full length, yeah. And so it was Princess Anne opened the facility in 1989. And so perhaps Eve, can you share one or two memories of those days?
I'll go and get my soggy speech.